So, this question, you bring up the question, sanity. We've been talking about this. We keep changing a little bit how we talk about it. There's been a lot of argument about Riel, and I think we should just try and see where it takes us tonight.
Absolutely. One of the things that hobbled me, that took me so long to try to figure out, is was he crazy or was he not? And then I thought, well, why am I looking at someone like Louis Riel from a contemporary Western point of view? Because he wasn't. He was. John said last week or 2 weeks ago when we first started this tour, out of nowhere, I don't think you had really reflected on it before.
No, it just came to me while we were sitting on the stage.
He was like, in great Russian literature, there's always the kind of mystic coming off of the steppes, walking out from the steppes of Russia, the prairies, and causing chaos, but trying to get to the greater truth. And that was the best Western way I could capture Riel, and too late. Thanks, John. For
there will be a paperback version.
So maybe I'll But it was like Riel being the great Russian mystic, walking out of the steppes and changing a world. But then if you look at him, there's so many interesting things about Riel. He was 1/8 Cree. The rest was French. So obviously he was really in blood, if you want to do blood terms, driven by his European side. The first Métis from Red River to be university educated. The first young man to be taken. He was going for the priesthood and stepped out when his father, his beloved father, died suddenly. A lot of kind of shocking things happened to him that we can look at from a Western perspective. But if we look at him from a First Nations perspective, is he a seer? Is he a mystic? Is he somebody who knows something or sees something that most of us don't, and we should pay a little bit of attention to? Absolutely. Is he a man who, because he is judged as crazy and he's a leader, as John also has said in the last couple of weeks, what great leader in world history isn't kind of nutty? Like, let's start with, is it Mackenzie King talk about?
Mackenzie King is a pretty good example.
Winston Churchill is a wonderful, all of these people are really kind of idiosyncratic and a little bit nutty in their own way. So why is it that Riel, we always have to judge him by sanity or insanity, when he is a mixed blood, when he is a man with a foot in the Anishinaabe world, the Cree world, and a foot in the white world? It doesn't seem fair to have to say, well, he was either nuts or he wasn't. And that seems to be the driving philosophy of trying to figure out Riel in Canada. And I realized I don't even want to play with that when I write about him. I'll put out the facts. I've read his diaries. I've read what everyone has to say about him. I'll just try to throw it all out. And you, the reader, decide. Is he nuts? When you read his trial transcripts, he's not an insane man. He is incredibly lucid and desperately, in a language that is not his first language, English, for fear that he can't speak French because his translators will get things wrong, is desperately trying to express to these 6 white Orangeman jurors and this Orangeman judge and this white audience, I am not crazy, my people are not crazy. If you judge me as crazy, which his defense was trying to do, without telling him, if I am judged insane, then my cause is insane, my people are insane, and I cannot allow that to happen. And that is when the empathy of Riel, that's when Riel became a human for me in all of my research, is reading those transcripts, which are just brilliant and can be found anywhere. You can just go online and find them. He was so desperately trying to explain his mission and what he hoped. And it's a pretty wild mission,
And it is interesting that when the tool of the empires in the 19th century was always to try to denigrate the people who weren't them. You might have been Métis, it might have been First Nation, but it might have been people elsewhere in the world. These were the biggest empires that have ever been seen. And they really used the argument of science against everyone else. So they kind of came up with these, medical, scientific, all these measurement rules in order to, but it's interesting they were supposed to be scientific. Curiously enough, it always put the English on top. Interesting science, interesting science. And and of course it just simply didn't look at their own people and judge their own people in that way. And I think there's no question that interesting leadership requires idiosyncratic, people who take risks, people who are different. And, you know, they may well be bipolar. They might well be a whole bunch of things, but why should that rule you out? You know, I mean, Winston Churchill is considered now to have been more or less manic depressive or bipolar. Didn't seem to stop him, you know. So it's a very interesting misuse of the Western idea of science and medicine and all this.
Oh, and absolutely. When I bring up the idea that Riel was only 1/8 Indian, it's never the Indian people who question your Indianness. It's always the white people saying, well, he's only this much, so therefore, you know, I have roughly the same bloodline as Louis Riel, and my heart is Indian, and my heart is First Nations, and so trying to judge things from this one kind of very kind of Western perspective, I had to throw all that out when I began realizing what's ahead of me with writing this book.
I think we also have to remember that the concept of race, as opposed to the concept of family and community and place, the concept of race was introduced into North America, certainly into this half of North America, by the French and the British. It's a European concept. And then, of course, creating these laws, as I said, my friend who was Inuit and then Métis and then Inuit, that's
I might be Inuit, I don't know.
That's that really old-fashioned European racist thing, which is that everybody, you know, you try to control people by defining the quantities of blood that they contain. I mean, it's lunacy. I mean, talk about lunacy. I mean, that's lunacy, you know, if you really want to think about it.